Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 6th of July, 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So I figured I'd start today's episode with a discussion around ETH staking, looking at some metrics that I have highlighted on the refuel before, but I figured was worth revisiting since it has been a little while since Shapala went live. I think it's been almost 2 months now. Actually, has it been longer than that? April to May, May to June? It's almost been 3 months. Okay, yeah, time is getting ahead of me here. So yeah, almost 3 months since staked ETH withdrawals went live, and things have obviously been heating up in the Ethereum staking space from new LSD protocols coming online and growing, DVT, StakeFi, reshuffling of stake, staking being de-risked because of withdrawals being enabled and all that good stuff there. So I figured almost 3 months since then, it's good to kind of like visit these dashboards that I've shown before. And the first one is from Hildobby. So this is Hildobby's ETH2 staking dashboard on Dune Analytics. This is probably one of the best dashboards that I've come across when it comes to tracking Ethereum staking. Probably the best, because there are so many different metrics here, and we can start from the top. Basically, it gives you a breakdown right at the top of the current state of ETH staking. It tells you how much ETH is staked, which is 23.7 million ETH staked right now. It tells you how many validators there are, the net flow since Shanghai or since Shapala went live. So there's been a net increase of 4.3 million ETH on the beacon chain since then. You have a percentage of the total ETH supply staked, which is almost 20%, staked through Lido, net flow excluding rewards since Shanghai as well, because with rewards, obviously they're automatically withdrawn from the beacon chain and deposited into people's withdrawal address without them having to prompt that. That's just done on an automatic process and it cycles through every block. But yeah, so that's the kind of at a glance. And then you've also got a breakdown of where the stake is on this section here. So what providers is it with, such as Lido and centralized exchanges, Rocket Pool, stuff like that. You've got a nice little pie graph here as well, pie chart here. And then you can scroll down and you get more granular information. And you can see like there's the last three. I think this is since Shapala. You can kind of see what the flows have looked like. You can see what the 1 month change is for ETH stakers as well. And you can just keep scrolling down. You've got a bunch of different metrics here. I just wanted to highlight this again for you guys, and I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to check out. But I think really the TLDR of all of this is that ETH staking has been up only since Shapala, and it's just been incredibly successful since its launch in December 2020. And I think a lot of people forget that ETH staking has actually been around since December 2020 when the beacon chain went live. Obviously, it was a separate chain. It wasn't part of the main Ethereum network. It was its own kind of like a separate chain that was just the beacon chain. It was just coming to consensus on itself. It wasn't processing transactions or anything like that, right? But it was still live, and it was still live in the same capacity that it was when the merge happened and it became part of the core Ethereum network. And we're coming up on 3 years this year. So this year in December 1st. It'll be 3 years since the beacon chain has been live. So it's been quite a while. But in terms of how the stake has kind of, evolved, or how Ethereum staking has evolved over time, you can kind of go to the beacon chain website, and they've got a bunch of charts here. And you can go to the validator chart, and you can actually see all the way back to December 1st, 2020. So you can see the whole life cycle of ETH staking and validators. I mean, it really has been up only for most of it because there wasn't an ability to withdraw until Shapala went live 3 months ago. But you look at this, right? Just eyeballing it here. You can see where Shapala went live, right? You can kind of like point it out. It was around here because we had like a few weeks where the number of validators laid flat because some people were withdrawing, some things were happening, right? But then on around May 10th, validators just started spiking like crazy. So May 10th, we were at 563,000 validators. Now we're at 650,000 active validators, plus the 90,000 that are waiting in the queue gets you to 740,000 validators on the network. So obviously, withdrawals was very bullish, right? Overall, very bullish for ETH staking. But you can kind of see different parts where it spikes up a little bit here and there. And there are sometimes event-driven reasons for that and sometimes not. But generally, the kind of a trend obviously has been that it's just up only. And it's funny because you can go all the way back to December 1st. The beacon chain really, I guess for quite a while here was under 100,000 validators for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months into 2021. And it's funny because the beacon chain launched just before the bull market really got started. And then you had, this is March 2021, so about 3-4 months here. And then you had obviously the bull market, but like you could argue that the first top, it was in May of 2021. There was only like 150,000 validators on the Beacon chain. So it's still very, very small, right? And then it obviously kept growing since then. But by the end of 2021, we were still only at, what was it? Let's go to the end of 2021 here, just eyeballing it off the chart. We're at 275,000 validators. Then through 2022, which was the bear market, right? Which was the peak of the bear market. If you go to the end of 2022, if I go here, it was almost 500,000 validators. So we doubled the amount of validators that were live on the network during the bear market. And I remember mentioning this on the refuel, saying that it's kind of crazy that 2022 was so brutal of a bear market, right? It was so brutal. So many people blowing up, so many funds blowing up, so many VCs and obviously FTX and stuff like that, and Terra and all that sorts of stuff blowing up, right? But still, ETH staking was up only. And obviously it was up only because withdrawals weren't enabled. But at the same time, people didn't have to put ETH into staking, right? They didn't have to stake their ETH. They could have sold it. When they didn't. They just kept staking ETH. They kept staking it. And we doubled the amount of active validators on the network during that. Now, since then, since the beginning of 2023, it was at around 500,000 validators. And now we're at 750,000 validators if you kind of like count for the ones that are in the queue. So we have added another 250,000 validators in half the time it took to add them in last year, right? And we're still not in a bull market, right? We're in a crab market. Obviously, things are starting to get more positive there for all the reasons I've outlined recently on the refuel, but it's kind of crazy to see just how much this has accelerated recently, given that the Beacon chain has been live for so long, right? And as I've said just before, it was because of that de-risking event, because of withdrawals. Because since withdrawals was enabled, we've added almost 200,000 validators. Because before then, it was, if you go from the start of 2023, which is around 500,000, to when Chappelle went live, it's 561,000. So we only added 60,000 validators in the first 4 months of the year. But then the next 3 months, we added another 100,000, basically, or more than that. I keep forgetting this doesn't account for the It doesn't account for the pending validators. So almost 200,000, which is crazy to me, right? And what does this mean overall for Ethereum as a network, for ETH as an asset, things like that? I mean, there are obviously broad implications here. I think that for Ethereum as a network, the questions around how many validators we want to be active on the network at any given time have really kind of reared their ugly heads again, so to speak. And there's lots of conversations happening around that with regards to potentially soft capping the validators on the network. And soft cap would basically mean that people could still stake their ETH, but there would only be a number of active validators for any given time period, basically. And it would probably be based on the different epics, the different epic time periods there, and obviously with finality and stuff like that. But then there were conversations around increasing the max effective balance of each validator. So we could basically shrink the number of validators on the network, but still keep the same security guarantees because the same amount of ETH would be staked and it would be the same node operators anyway. So there are those conversations starting now. I think one of those solutions will definitely go into the network in the next maybe 18 months or so, let's say, right? Maybe towards the end of next year or something like that. And they're definitely needed because it does seem like we're going to hit 1 million validators sooner rather than later. We'll probably hit it sometime next year if the pace continues here. And it's kind of funny because looking at the historical data here over like what ETH staking looks like in bull and bear markets, we added more validators in a bear market than we have in the bull market, but ETH staking has been live for longer in a bear market than it has in a bull market, because I guess you could say, or you could argue the crypto bull market started really at the first half of 2020. So say like when DeFi summer started, maybe June of 2020. But I think before that, I think you could say that if you discount the COVID dump in 2020, the bull market started at the beginning of that year. So you could say that the whole of 2020, the Beacon chain wasn't live, right? And then it was only live for around 6 months of the real bull market. I actually don't consider the second half of 2021 to be part of the bull market because of all that stuff I mentioned yesterday around me thinking that it was kind of a fake pump because of all the leverage. And I really don't think that it lines up with what you see in a typical bull market. But even if you include that, ETH staking has just been live longer in a bear market than it has in a bull market. So it's kind of hard to tell what it's going to look like. Like, are people going to withdraw as the ETH price is going up in a bull market and sell? Like, is the validator count going to go down because of that? I really don't think so, because there are the LSTs. And if people want to sell they sell their LSTs. And yes, that does have an effect on the beacon chain, because if the LSTs start trading at a discount to fair value, people will buy them and then arb them with the beacon chain, and there'll be complex strategies that people employ to do this. But at the same time, I just don't see like a mass outflow. I really do feel like a lot of people staking ETH are in it for the long term. And I really do feel like a lot of these people, even if they sell their ETH when it goes up and they stop staking, I reckon they'll wait until the bear market and buy again and just restake. So I really don't foresee a mass outflow there, because the price is high and people are just selling their ETH and things like that. Rewards for sure. Rewards are a different thing. I'm talking about like just the principle here. Rewards are a different thing altogether, and I think that's out of scope of what I wanted to talk about today. But yeah, this chart has always been something that I found was quite fascinating. Just watching and seeing how validated trends or how beacon chain trends have kind of changed over time, and how it really continues to be up only here. But yeah, you can check out this chart for yourself. You can also check out Hildobby's staking dashboard here, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. But I just figured it was worth talking a little bit about it again today, just to keep you guys up to speed on what's happening in the ETH staking space, and just maybe refresh your memory on a few of these things. All right, so speaking of staking, Dappnode has an update out that I forgot to cover yesterday. I actually had this tab open in yesterday's episode, but I somehow skipped over it. But Dappnode chatted about something called Dappnode monitoring back in January and boosting it. They're almost there. So they're introducing something called the Ethical Monitor, which is a privacy-focused service for Dappnode alerts. And the TLDR is that Dappnode are about to launch a service to receive alerts about the status of your Dappnode that is completely ethical and does not compromise your privacy. So what I find really cool about this is that if you want to be like a completely self-sovereign staker, and you want to maintain your privacy, and you don't want to leak any information about yourself when you're staking your ETH, but at the same time, you're not a very technical person, and you're using something like Dappnode, which makes it really easy to stake your ETH as a solo staker, then this is really cool for you, because it means that Dappnode users now get access to something that preserves their privacy without having to go to some third-party service and link everything together, which, you know, if you're fine with that, that's fine as well. And you can actually link things pretty easily if you know what you're doing with third-party services. Like the Beacon Chain website, for example, you can sign up with an address that doesn't link to you at all, and then add your validators that way, and it would be relatively hard for the Beacon Chain operators to essentially track you down, right, or link the address to you. One thing they could do is, I guess, like link an IP, but they'd have to get the IP details from somewhere else, and it wouldn't be easy, right? So there are ways to do that, but with Dappnode, they're just going to make it a lot easier, because they're going to build it right into the Dappnode stack, and they're going to make it easy for people that are running Dappnode that aren't technical and obviously want to be able to do this in a privacy preserving way. So yeah, as I said, this is going to be live soon. This was posted. This blog post was shared again, but this was posted on Twitter on July 4th. So yeah, I'm not sure on the exact date. I don't know if they mentioned it on the on the post here, but you can check out the post for the full details of how this is going to work. I'll link it in the YouTube description below, but I just figured it was something that was interesting and worth bringing out for you guys to check out, because I know a few of you definitely run Dappnode to be a solo staker on the network. All right, so Georgios from Paradigm here, who is also behind the Reth client that I spoke about, or I've spoken about a bit on the refuel before, the Reth execution layer client for Ethereum, has run or Josh here, who he's working with, who's the VP of engineering at Lens Protocol and Aave, has run a benchmark of the graph versus Reth doing a hosted service here. So you can see the tweet reads, so apparently Josh ran a benchmark versus the graph hosted service, and apparently it's 60 times faster. Start at 11M, end 17M, 18 hours so far, 98% and Reth did it in 20 minutes, probably nothing. So for those of you who don't know, the graph is an indexing protocol, basically works as a way to serve different events and indexing and stuff like that to different projects. So for example, when you go to a DeFi front end and you see all the information on there, such as like total value locked and APRs and stuff like that, a lot of that is served by the graph itself. But the graph has its own architecture that it works with, and it definitely works with Ethereum clients. But the Ethereum clients that exist today on the execution layer side of things aren't optimized for stuff like that. Whereas Reth is actually working to optimize for these sorts of things and make it faster to index things. So this is a Reth index indexer that is basically 60 times faster than the graph, and doing the same thing the graph would do, which is the task is actually outlined here. So what they were doing, they were indexing Rocket Pool ETH transfer / approval events, both starting on block 11 million and finishing on block 17.5 million here. And the graph took 19.5 hours to do this, whereas Reth did it in 20 minutes. That's kind of crazy when you think about it, right? Now I'm not an expert on any of this. I don't know the underlying technology of what the graph is using here and why it's so slow. I do know the graph is trying to be a decentralized service. I don't know how far along they are with that roadmap just yet, but they could definitely integrate Reth into their stack here and make it faster for everyone using the graph as well, and make the indexing faster just generally. But it really goes to show like how much more improvement can be had by just improving the clients. And as I've said before, the various Ethereum clients that exist, they optimize for different things. On the execution layer side, the only teams optimizing right now for indexing and for things like archive nodes are Aragon and Reth. I don't think Nethermind or Geth are optimizing for those sorts of things. I don't think Besu is either, but Aragon definitely is as part of their core roadmap, and Reth is definitely doing it as well. Whereas, on the consensus layer side of things, they don't have to worry about indexing like the execution layer does, because they're just handling the beacon chain. They're not handling the actual transactions that are taking place on the execution layer. That will change in the future, especially with things like EIP 4844 blob style transactions, because those are actually stored on the consensus layer, and there are different kind of considerations there. But generally, if you're looking for indexing transactions and events and stuff like that, that's all happening on the execution layer side. So you would do this in an execution layer client, and that's exactly what Reth is kind of doing here. They're optimizing for these sorts of stuff, optimizing for archive nodes. And I've gone through before how Reth is currently the fastest archive node, so fastest one to sync an archive node, which is also very cool. But just figured it was worth shouting out because, as I said, it's worth showing that there are so many improvements that are going to be made around clients over time. It's going to lead to such a more powerful Ethereum, and such a more powerful way of running archive nodes, indexing things. And archive nodes could one day become like the default node that people run instead of a full node. Yes, a full node and archive node give you the same kind of guarantees, but an archive node gives you access to more data. But if it's the same thing to run an archive node versus a full node, and you get access to that extra data, we should see more archive nodes come online. It may take up a bit more space than a full node, depending on how much you're syncing, but still, I thought it was something pretty cool to highlight for you guys there. All right, so AxioM has announced their mainnet alpha release. So for those of you who don't know what AxioM is, they are the first ZK coprocessor scaling data-rich applications on Ethereum. Now, if you don't know what that means, the TLDR is basically that AxioM introduces a new way to access data and compute on-chain based on cryptography. All results returned by AxioM are verified on-chain by zero-knowledge proofs, meaning smart contracts can use them without additional trust assumptions. So from my understanding, essentially what AxioM allows you to do is process everything off-chain, slap a ZK proof on it, and then put that proof on-chain on Ethereum, and essentially have the same guarantees as doing the processing on-chain. Now, why you would do this is because obviously it's a lot cheaper to do processing off-chain than running the process on-chain on Ethereum L1, and then just post the proof to Ethereum L1. Now, if this is ringing a bell, it's because this is what L2s effectively do. They take the execution side of things off Ethereum, and they do that off-chain, and then they just kind of like roll it up, right? And they bundle it up, and they post the data and the proof on Ethereum L1, and it makes it a lot cheaper by doing that. And AxioM is planning to do this in a more generalized way, where essentially you can do any computation that you want off-chain and still have the same security as you would if it was done on-chain, because you have a ZK proof basically proving the computation did what it said it was going to do. Now, there are a few ideas that they've come up with here. So they say, we are excited about new types of trust minimized applications that AxioM enables. A few ideas in identity are off-chain governance enforced and enacted on-chain without the help of a multi-sig, on-chain loyalty systems, trustlessly rewarding a protocol's most valuable users, And AxioM can also create new trustless oracles for on-chain data, such as gas price oracles to settle block-based markets, trust minimized price and volatility oracles for arbitrary assets on top of Uniswap liquidity, and settlement prices for exotic derivatives or structured products. So this is really cool. I mean, it's basically taking a lot of different things that you can do off-chain, or basically anything you could do off-chain and compute off-chain, bringing it on-chain, something like what Chainlink does, but doing it in a way that it can give you similar, if not the same, security guarantees as it can if you were to do the computation on chain. Now, there's a lot of things to digest here. Obviously, this is something that is very new, something that you can check out yourself. I'll link this in the YouTube description below. But for me, when a lot of smart people that I respect and follow are getting excited about things like this, it's when I start getting excited about it. And I've seen a bunch of smart people that I respect talk about this project, talk about this technology, and say, yeah, if this works as advertised, this is going to be huge. And there's no reason why it shouldn't work as advertised, because the technology that they're using is not theoretical, it's practical, it's being used in the wild today. And it definitely has a lot of very deep implications for different things happening on Ethereum here. So you can check out their full blog post here for, I guess, details on what they've launched today, as well as their website to learn more about AxioM there. All right, so StarkNet has been growing a lot lately, actually. I haven't talked about them in a little while, but I've been keeping tabs on what StarkNet has been doing. They are doing a lot, actually. So they announced today that they have basically done something called the StarkNet Quantum Leap, which is a major throughput improvement for StarkNet. And they've got here StarkNet Alpha version 0.12.0 was released, and now increases throughput by 10x. So you can go check out the blog post for more details on this. But there was Influence, which is a game that's running on StarkNet here, that's saying that their testnet client is showing a clear 10 times improvement in game action finality. What once took minutes is now down to low seconds. So there is already a practical and real-world impact here of what Starkware has released for StarkNet, and you can see the TLDR at the top of the blog post for what this did. And yeah, StarkNet is definitely still in alpha, but they're making big improvements to this. They being Starkware, they're making some very big improvements to StarkNet. As you guys know, StarkNet is a non-EVM layer 2. So they're trying to do something different, and they're not just trying to do something different in terms of like not being EVM, but they're also trying to make it so developers can write applications in their language, which is Cairo, and they're trying to do new things with new primitives. As I said, like there's gaming apps on here that are running fully on chain. Influence runs fully on chain, guys. This isn't something that has like an off-chain component where you do all the computation off-chain. No, this is done completely on-chain on StarkNet. And as they said here, what usually took minutes is now down to low seconds thanks to these improvements. And you know, the cost improvements as well are there, and that's coming down all the time as well. But yeah, that's really, really cool to see that there's already that kind of practical improvement there. But as I said, this is only on testnet right now, but it's great to see the StarkNet ecosystem continuing to grow. I'm rooting for their success, definitely. I have been kind of a little bit harsh on Starkware in the past, and I have been a little bit bearish on them, only because it seemed like they were falling behind in terms of adoption, in terms of getting things built out, in terms of getting developer traction. But I think that the reason why I felt like that was because a lot of the developers in the Ethereum ecosystem today are like all about the EVM, right? They're all about EVM, they're all about Solidity, they gravitate towards that. But I think that what Starkware is trying to do, and what they've been pretty successful in doing lately, is onboarding developers that maybe they don't know Solidity, maybe they're not married to the EVM, maybe they know Rust, and maybe they want to learn a new language like Cairo. And I think Starkware is doing a really great job of onboarding those people, and those are the ones that I think are going to push the boundaries forward for StarkNet and get adoption there. And in terms of users, there are definitely users on there. There's obviously a lot of airdrop farming as well, because Starkware haven't airdrop their token yet. They have announced that there's going to be a token, but it's not live yet. So you got to keep that in mind as well. But I think that's true for like pretty much everything that doesn't have a token, right? But there definitely are real users there using it, playing around with it on both testnet and mainnet. There are wallets that support it, such as Argent. So yeah, just great to see the StarkNet ecosystem continuing to grow here. And you can check out this latest update, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. All right, speaking of L2s, and L3s, Loopring announced today that Loopring L3 is now officially live on Taiko's Alpha 3 ZKEVM testnet. So they say here, this marks the beginning of our L3 journey towards achieving greater scalability and highly optimized experiences tailored for our smart contract, or smart wallet, and decentralized applications. So it seems like Loopring is... Look, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I think that what's going to happen with Loopring is that they're going to possibly just sunset their L2 and go all in on this L3 on Taiko once it's live on mainnet. It makes a lot more sense for them to do this, in my opinion, because the L2, like Loopring L2, hasn't gotten the traction that I believe Loopring wanted it to get for quite a while now. Core people from Loopring left and started Taiko, so there's a close relationship there, and it makes a lot of sense for Loopring just to piggyback off of Taiko, right? Instead of trying to maintain their own L2 in their own L2 protocol, they can become an L3 on top of Taiko and then just benefit from all of Taiko's growth. Yes, Taiko is not live yet. It's very new still. And maybe Loopring is going to just have like a wait and see approach here. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Loopring sunset their L2 and go all in on the L3 just purely for the fact that it's a lot easier for them to focus on that instead of trying to build out their own L2. And I think that I think that Loopring wants to be user facing as well. So an L3 is perfect for that because they want to get able to use their smart wallets and use their different applications that they've built out for various different use cases. So yeah, I'm making a prediction now that I believe at some point in the future, Loopring's L2 will be sunset in favor of its L3, and then everyone will just use their L3 on Taiko because the Loopring tech isn't bad, but I think that Taiko is going to be a lot better in terms of the fact that the Taiko team's just focusing on the L2 itself. They're not focusing on being particularly user-facing. They're going to let the apps do that. And Loopring, at the end of the day, is an app, right? And they could do their own app-specific L2 if they wanted to, but there are trade-offs there as well with things. And obviously doing that as an L2 comes with trade-offs, and they could do like an Arbitrum Nova L3, but I think why they've chosen Taiko is, as I said, they have close relationships with the people building Taiko because a few of them are former Loopring people, and it's probably just easier for them to do that and work with them there, and maybe the Taiko technology also just benefits them and makes a lot more sense for what they're building than something else because it is, I don't know if it is, but it might be built using similar tech because they're both ZK rollups here. So yeah, just really cool to see that Loopring has put their L3 live on the Taiko ZKVM testnet. You can check out the Twitter thread for more information on that. Yeah, we'll see how Loopring evolves from here, and we'll see if they actually do end up sunsetting that L2 in favor of this L3 sometime in the future. But I think on that note, that's going to be it for today's episode. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.